What's going on, everybody? Brought to you by yours truly, Infinite 147. Another Street Fighter 6 sermon, which has not really appeared on the channel at all since probably May. I wouldn't even count the first week of June when I had that year 4 reaction to Street Fighter 6, right? Like between that and then the rest of the entirety of June, I've been really busy. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't even really been indoors to even get a chance to play, but I did so half the time to take a small bit of a vacation out and stuff. Touch some grass and just enjoy the heat because yours truly is actually not really affected by like everybody else's. I actually enjoy the heat more than I enjoy the freezing cold. So that's just the hill I'm willing to die on. Everybody else, which I will say this, if you actually are affected by the heat health wise in any way negatively, yeah, stay cool, stay hydrated and stuff, because no one wants to just die from just walking outside. But, aside from that, I have been getting games in clearly because, as you can see on your screen right now, I got the boy RYU the Ultimate Master. I actually never thought I was going to get it at a few points, during these runs. But that's what I'm here to talk about right now, actually. Because a lot went down in just trying to get this boy up to 1800, And it was something that I wanted to do long before even Alex released, right? But I didn't really go through with it around that time when I even conjured up the idea. It was because I was just doing so well with Ken that I just wanted to add more fire to that fuel so that, my Ken was just that cut up and clean. But, something came around where I was just okay, let's see if I could take someone else and master him in a sense to what I consider to kind of be the standard of knowing the character, which is to me right now is getting them to 1800, right? Because anything past that, I'm not gonna lie. Realistically, I'm gonna be honest, right? I only can see myself really reaching all the way to 1900 with Ken, right, at my peak, but I don't really care to do so, just because it doesn't really interest me to move past that, or even to try to sweat out to get to legend, if even then, not even saying that I think I could, but it's just to even make that the rest of that journey all the way up there. It's just something that I'm not really even able to do right now. And like I said, I have no interest in that, but making that 1800 run is realistic to me. Give me a sec. I hear something. Actually, never mind. It was just relatives coming back inside. But yeah, to get into more of how my run is or was with RYU, I thought it was gonna be a lot smoother than than it originally went by, because RYU is my second most played character. Honestly, by experience alone, he might actually have a lot more playtime than even my Ken, right? Because there's a whole the first 3 months of when the game released that I actually was playing him instead of Ken until I eventually made that switch, because around that time RYU was not even half the character that he is now, and Ken was, I won't say way better, because it's no one's really changed that much aside from a few RYU, but Ken was better, in the meta around the time of the game. Nobody really knew what to do and stuff, and Ken was just moving a lot better than he is now. But once I really started to get deep inside the world of Street Fighter 6 ranked and stuff, it's it became apparent that my game plan with the character had a lot more gaps than I originally had thought. At least to that level of making it to Ultimate Master, right? Because by this point, like it's easy for me to like get a lot of the characters that I know how to play to like 1700 easily. It really just becomes a matter of like it's only a matter of time until I eventually do make it, right, which gets faster and faster each phase. But I never really challenged myself to try to see if I could bring someone up all the way to where I would peak with Ken as far as like the number, like the MR points go. Like I said, with Ken, it's a lot easier just because I've done it so many times, and that is my main. So I know the ins and outs of him at such a level that I'm at my peak when I play that character. But Ryu was different, like even though I understand the character for what he is and stuff. In practice, however, being able to realize the results that I wanted was it proved to be a lot more difficult because just because of the way that he's designed by nature. Even though like everybody in the game has or relies on the system mechanics to some extent, like drive, rush, and perfect parry and DI, he's a lot slower. His buttons are, well, I wouldn't even say he's like slower because he's supposed to have the same like walk speed as Ken, right? But what I mean slower is that like for one, his buttons are not really like his buttons are slightly just like they're average, but also like slower than Ken's. Ken actually he has a 5-frame medium, for example, and he has a 7-frame 2M low, and also there's just other buttons that kind of work better for Ken. As far as like the footsie, like neutral and the footsie range goes, like standing heavy kick, for example, and Ken's a lot more mobile too. Like he has run stop. Even though at the level where I'm at, the moves is pretty much useless, but he does have Dragon Lash. So to some level, like it is something that he has to like get around and skip neutral. Even though I do tend to play him more grounded, but having the ability to like amp up and like play at a faster pace, it's a lot easier with Ken than Ryu, right? For me, at least. While Ryu is kind of forced to like sit back most of the time in neutral, especially against characters that have better buttons than him, like Chun-Li and Cammy. It's a nightmare to play against those matchups, dude. Because Ryu doesn't have that many good pokes at like mid to far range in the footsie space, right? So Ryu has, like I said, he has to sit back, and it's just something that it felt very unnatural to how I like to play, because Ken is able to press a lot more buttons against these characters, and honestly, but like with those two specific matchups in mind, like I still would rather pick Ken any day of the week. But I was there for Ryu, so I had to find a way to adapt to that, and other things too, just as like learning, working on better set play after I do get the hidden. He's a lot more also meter dependent than someone like Ken. Like Ken is really good at being meter efficient in the sense that he doesn't require to spend much meter to get some of the good things that he has, like side switches and stuff, because he has a auto side switch move, and that can easily put the opponent back in the corner if you yourself are in the corner and get the hidden, right? But Ryu requires meter, right? And honestly, there's just some situations in where Ken gets better set play, while Ryu has to do a lot more specific things in mind, but overall, I still think that Ryu is better once he does get those things checked in order and executes it well. especially with the reward that he gets, because it's undeniable that Ryu has like one of the, like top three most highest damaging combos in the game. I think the only other few characters that really top him now is Marissa obviously does. I think Bison technically does too. And now that Ingrid's here, even though hers, honestly, Ingrid's is a lot less accessible to get, but I guess I should just put her below Ryu in that sense, because Ryu can easily just get one simple standing heavy kick punish counter into big damage. And, every character can be killed off of two interactions and stuff. So, but, that right there is where I would consider to be what I would consider to be the most broken thing about the character, because everything else, disregarding like how the move Hashogeki works, right? Everything else is pretty average in my opinion still. The normals are average. They're not really the best in most matchups against a lot of these characters. His fireball, it's good, but his like vanilla version of the fireball is just like decent, until he gets the buff and stuff. It's like when he starts to get like the buffs is when like most of these moves really shine. But Hashogeki, on the other hand, I will say is it's actually really stupid what you can do with that, because with light Hasho on punish counter or like counter hit, even since the opponent gets sent flying back, you could go for a juggle combo, and if you're in the corner, actually even mid screen, you could get like 50% if you have the meter, which is something that Ken used to be able to do something like that, but since they nerfed Jinrai and shin kicks on counter hit, like he can't do shit like that anymore, but Ryu still can, and also we know Ryu for having like some of the most insane damage to like drive meter. Like I know everybody's seen the string on like ranked or like high level, pro level, to where Ryu will just go into medium into EX Hasho, medium into EX Hasho, and medium into EX Hasho. Give me a sec. Okay. I had to make sure I was recording because sometimes I forget that I am. And because of those strings, right, like the opponents will like panic at times, because I've had opponents like panic too, and where they would try to like escape that string through like any gap, and then they end up getting hit instead, and then that just chips away at their health fully, So Ryu is really good at creating airtight block strings, because of how many moves he has and how many ways he has of making himself plus in the opponent's face, even though it's not like direct mix. Actually, technically it is. It's just that to this game standard, it's nothing like JP's portals, right? But honestly, in this game, like the mental stack is so high that even just with button, every character has this too. Button into drive rush is mix right there. It's immediate guessing. So honestly, Ryu is a monster, because now you give a character that historically really never had any kind of mix. Now he's given the same kind of mix that every other character has. And of course, guessing wrong against him is game costly. So, but like I said, as far as myself and my experience goes, in order to make all of that like work for myself, I had to definitely I had to do a lot of inventory on the way that I approached Street Fighter with him, because like I said before, Ken is a lot more aggressive. He's designed to be rushed down, you know, so he's a lot more mobile and stuff. He can easily bring the opponents to the corner right there, and then that's where any character really shines at their best. While Ryu, on the other hand, has to technically work two more steps in order to make that happen. So eventually it got to a point because, you know, in the beginning, as always, like I got my ass handed to, I'm not gonna lie, because I would try to play, like there was some habits that I had with Ken that just did not translate well over to Ryu. And you know, with everything that I had like known, like that would work for like me getting up to 1700, it was pretty much futile against the opponents that were the level above, you know. So I had to do a lot of inventory on like cleaning up a lot of the gaps that I had in my game plan with Ryu. And I went to like look at, you know, pros play and stuff. I went to the lab to really work on like some of the things, my approaches to how I got like, you know, the stocks and stuff, or at least Denshin charge, and my set play in the mid screen, you know, new meaty setups, other tech, and like, you know, how I basically structured my way of breaking down the opponent, you know, because um, he still has to work somewhat in neutral to make things happen, you know, because of some of the tools that he has still being average, you know, which is, you know, take that. Like, I know there's probably going to be a few people that are in like the comments or that come across the video like, bro, this character's broken, bro. Just use fucking donkey kick and stuff, motherfucker. This character's brain dead, which all of that to me is really unfair to say because, you know, donkey kick, for example, it's annoying, it's good, but at the same time, it has counter play to it. You know, like you can DI that, and unless you have level 3, you know, you're really not covered by anything if the opponent guesses right on that DI. And also, like I said, perfect parry is a thing, so you can't just be brain dead with anything at a certain level in this game, you know. I really do question where people stand skill wise in the game when they say shit like this. Plus, to be honest with you guys, unless your name is my JP or who's another character or Sagat, throwing those terms around of being broken or brain dead, in my opinion, despite what this game is just like a poor excuse to say that you just don't like the character, you know. That's just my take on it because, you know, I think everybody, even the names that I just mentioned, can be beat in some way, you know. Like everyone has at least a gap, no matter how small it is, you know. And while for some it may be like hard to take advantage of, you know, that doesn't mean that it's impossible, you know. And that's usually the philosophy that I roll with any fighting game, you know. But you know, back to Ryu, right? Like after cleaning up a lot of these things and stuff, and also doing a bit of like inventory on my mental, right? Because I couldn't just treat Ryu like he was Ken, you know. I had to learn to be a lot more patient too, because this is something I already mentioned when I even got him to like 1700, you know, or even when I got to Ken to 1800, you know. It's really all about like developing a lot more balance within yourself and being a lot more patient and more analytical with every minor detail that's happening on the screen right now, and learning the appropriate responses, not reactions, responses, because both of those things are different. Because sometimes doing the reacting to something is actually what your opponent wants out of you and stuff, you know. Because a reaction is something that's a lot more not instinctual in a mental sense, but in an emotional sense, right? So it'll trigger a certain action out of you if you react to something, and then you end up like getting exposed for that, and now the opponent knows what buttons they need to press in order to win the game against you and have you open up your flaws, while responding to something is you making an active conscious decision to make a certain move based on not only based on what you see, the information you are seeing, but the ultimate decision to act is coming from a standpoint of you making a conscious decision versus something that's impulsive, and that's something that, what separates pros from even the high level players, because even like from time to time, I get caught into that, right? And I even see other players around me, like everyone has it, but pros are really good at, majorly like using their heads to, respond to most of the situations versus react, right? And that's what separates each level of like players in skill, like the higher up you go, you see a lot more of these players having a lot more composure and control of themselves while not letting these emotional impulses to break that composure and ends up getting them killed, and that's something that I've learned to do enough to where now I've hit like a certain baseline for myself, like I said, it's not much of a challenge to get someone to 1700 now with pretty much any character in the game that I know how to play. And this was just this is now just becoming an upgrade, because I had to relearn and apply a lot of things, and also learn new things too, that didn't exist with Ken, in order to realize this scenario right here. And now where I'm sitting behind the mic looking at the screen of Ryu having the rank of Ultimate Master, and these are things I had to learn through my experiences, and it's something that I need you guys also to realize that when you take the time to really do kind of that internal work and stuff to gain this level of like discipline and composure and stuff, you'll actually see that it's going to open up a lot more room for you to be more expressive with how you play and stuff and how you succeed, because now what to do in those situations, and now like it feels like I have a lot more breathing room to play the character. Strangely, it's like very paradoxical, by like keeping myself a lot more centered and stuff, and not wild in a sense to where I'm like, because there's a difference between like playing wild to where what you're doing and it's controlled chaos, and then there's a difference between exploding with chaos but not necessarily knowing what's happening or what you're doing yourself, or what you're trying to aim towards. And that's the difference between players that play wild at these levels versus players that play wild in like the lower ranks that are not even at master yet, or even like low masters, right? And it's there is a difference there that you guys need to learn and identify when it is happening, because your approaches to those two scenarios are very different, because one is backed up by a lot more intelligence than the other, and the other one is a lot more sustainable. But just like any kind of game plan, there is a flaw within it that once exposed and taken advantage of, it all comes down like falling apart, and this is something that once you guys are able to identify and stuff, you'll see that making it up to these ranks is it becomes more of a cakewalk, because obviously like it took me a bit to even get Ryu up, just because I didn't know how to exactly execute that all this with Ryu until I bit my tongue and accepted the fact that I was being stubborn on a few things, and allowed myself to open my third eye to see, what he really was about and what I was doing that couldn't be really emulated with Ryu, right? Like what I would do with Ken. So in knowing all that, right, like now it just comes to what I choose to do from here, right? Because now I feel like I could probably drag like another character like Terry in and stuff. And to be honest, I'm not even really sure if I want to do this again with Ryu. Because honestly, these ideas just kind of pop in my head once in a while, but it would be fun to do just because like it makes a good video on my part. And also I do like to dabble into other characters from time to time, just because like playing one single character for the entirety of the game's lifespan, it gets stale as fuck, because you're really only getting one version of the game out of the many ways that you could play it, whether it be like through other characters and stuff, but I'll have to wait and see for that, like what I decide to do, because after this run I'm just kind of wanting to chill, and I am picking up Ken back up and stuff for other things, because I still consider him my best character, even though I have picked up a lot on Ryu, that honestly I feel like I could be a lot more comfortable with him in tournament now, more so than before. But I've yet to really see it in practice to really gauge whether or not I could consider him to be like tournament viable. I still think there's a lot to be cleaned up on, but that's just me. So I'm hoping that all of this like helped you guys out. I've given you guys a lot. This was probably one of the more like outspoken videos I've done too, because usually like even I've gone back to like previous videos that I've done on this shit, and I actually thought of revisiting some of these topics because I'm still technically new to this in a sense, and in regards to like me being vocal behind YouTube videos and stuff, and I noticed that I tended to be a lot more awkward behind the mic, just because like it's just not natural to me, to like, talk in an empty room by myself behind like the microphone. It's just strange to me. I guess it's something that like YouTubers and streamers, for example, they just get used to that, even if like they're doing a recording for a video that doesn't have an audience with them, because when you're streaming, for example, you have people live paying attention and listening to the things you're saying at the present moment. But in this, for example, well, at least what most people would do was have something that's like scripted right already, so they could just roll off of that. But the videos that I do tend to be like raw, off the top of my head. But I feel like this one actually went better around than most of the videos that I make. So I don't know. I plan to do a lot more of these because there is a lot of game that I want to share with you guys, but that'll have to be for a different time because I gotta stop things right here, and I gotta head to the bathroom. You dig? So I appreciate everybody for stopping by, those that did. And if you have any comments or like concerns, like questions and stuff that and advice you want me to give you guys on, feel free to ask below. And I know I've gotten DMs from people, but I'm not gonna lie, like this summer has been really busy for me. So if I don't say anything, don't take it too personally. I just been like, doing shit, so I'm gonna get up on out of here. As of right now, it's the morning of the 4th of July, so I hope everybody like has fun out there, but like, be safe, because the spirit of alcoholism has, come upon a good majority of Americans right now. So, just be weary of idiots out there with alcohol in their system. You dig? So, that. And this is Infinite 47, and I'll be seeing y'all around. Peace.